Well, Stephanie, thank you so much for coming to Women on Fire. We have met each other before in an interview previously where I interviewed you about goals and stuff, and it was so exciting where you contacted me and told me about this amazing ride that you're doing. And then when you told me why you're doing it, I was really surprised. And then we spoke a little bit on the phone or on Facebook. Same thing.
Same thing.
Yeah. And I said to you, hey, I just want to really highlight some things that are often swept under the rug. And so today is going to be one of those really great interviews and those really great conversations that I feel some people just don't have. And the reason I really want to do that is because I want to challenge people's beliefs around domestic violence, because evidently what we're doing now is not working.
So right, and thank you very much for having me. I really appreciate it, because it is something that we need to bring more awareness to it, because too many people believe that you have to either have the black eye or broken limbs or being killed by a partner, a spouse, or by someone to be in a domestic violence relationship.
And that's so interesting. So we'll come back to that, because I first want to start off with this amazing motorbike ride that you're doing through the world. And I just saw you riding and on a big bike, and it's like a beast. And I was like, geez, that is a big bike to have between your legs. So, lots of horsepower. So tell us first about your mission and what that's all about.
So how it all came together was obviously because I was in a emotional abusive relationship, and I'm still even 8 years after being divorced. And it got to a point where I said, once my son turns 18, I'm going to go around the world to celebrate a part of that freedom that I've received through that. Things have evolved a little bit, and so next year in 2018, actually August 2018, I go around for 2-3 months around Australia, just by myself.
Okay.
But then in 2020, so the 2nd of February 2020, my son and I will go around the world to bring awareness of domestic violence.
Okay.
And and it's really exciting, because we will go into countries where domestic violence is very high, where it is acceptable by society that women get treated like second best, and going into different countries and helping them raise awareness of. And the other part of the reason why I want to do is because when someone is stuck in domestic violence, quite often they don't know how to get out, because they may not know that they have actually resources, or they have people around them. So they're so stuck in, I don't know what to do. My motorbike ride, or our motorbike ride, 50% I can't count for it. I can't plan of what's going to happen. And it's about just doing it. It's about going and taking day by day. And I mean, there will be so many things happening where we're going to have accidents. The bike is going to drop. The bike is going to weigh about 260 kilos. There is no hell. I'm really scared, sorry.
No, you can swear. This is like public television. It is heavy though, right?
It is.
Because my brother, when I was younger, I remember he had a bike. Don't ask me which one, I can't recall. But he once parked it in front of the garage, okay? And so I wanted to move this thing because I wanted to get into the garage. So unbeknown to me, I just thought, oh, I'll just push it back. No way. I picked it up and I lost the grip. It was so heavy, and I just dropped the whole thing, and I couldn't get it back up.
Don't get me wrong. I've dropped my bike multiple times.
How did you get it back up?
With someone else.
Yeah.
So I mean, we're gonna hurt ourselves. I mean, one of the things is we need to learn defense, because we will come into a country where women do get raped.
Yeah.
I need to be able to defend myself.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So the whole ride is about not knowing what's going to happen. So it's basically just a vehicle that if we can do this, you can do that.
Absolutely.
You just need to reach out and...
Whose phone?
That was my phone.
It doesn't matter. I was like, did I turn my phone off? That's all good. Doesn't matter.
I just realised hopefully no one's ringing now.
It doesn't matter. This is life. We're women. We deal with life.
Exactly,
Yeah?
exactly.
Yeah. And it's so cool. And I know often I'd love you just to explain a little bit step by step of how this is going to come together for you. And the reason I say that is because people would look at you often, I find, and they only see you and your son doing this amazing thing. They don't understand the work that's actually behind this. So can you just explain to me a little bit about, the planning, the funding, and how you're pulling that all together? Because I feel it's really important in a world that glorifies success, but not what goes behind the success, to talk about those steps. So can you just share that with us a little bit?
Well, let's put it this way. It scares the crap out of me. On a daily basis, I ask myself, are you doing the right thing? No. How are you going to do this? Because it is a mountain. The ride in itself is going to cost me a 6-figure income. And but the whole reason why it's not about me ticking off my bucket list going around the world. No. I want to raise awareness. So everything that we do needs to be in line with raising awareness of domestic violence. So I am an ambassador for a charity called End All DV.
Great.
So it's a charity that is non-gender based. So it's not about females being in domestic violence. It's not about males being in domestic violence. It's about anyone, regardless of are you black, white, yellow, male, female, it doesn't really matter. So it's for us riding, yes, we need to understand what's going to be ahead of us. So we need to plan that of the route, what kind of tools are we taking, because it's basically my son and I is the support team. Yeah. This is all about how can we bring change, and it's about being a survivor. You came out on the other side. It is about celebrating the other side. It's about happiness. It's about enjoyment, and it's about. I love that. We'll
cover that a bit more. Awesome.
So there's so much. So we are raised. So we're going to do luncheons, charity luncheons. We're going to do a black tie ball. We have charity rides. We're organising a family fun day out for next year, end of March. So it's like a whole day with jumping castles and raffles and auctions and
stalls. What would be a really great idea? It's so funny because now that you're sitting opposite me, I've always wanted to go on a breakfast run. You know how you get on the bike and you go for a ride and you stop somewhere for breakfast? I think that's a really good one. You can set a spot on the back of your bike, because obviously I can't ride a bike, and then go for a breakfast.
What's stopping you?
No, nothing. That's why I'm saying this is a great idea.
I've only been riding for 11 months.
I see. I won't be riding with you, then I'll just get someone before experienced. I'm only teasing. So obviously there's a lot to do. So now thank you for sharing that, and that's such a great cause and such a great adventure, and I just love that. So just backtracking a little bit now, can you just share with us, what's been your experience, your personal experience with domestic violence, and how is that sort of I'm really interested in how it sort of all started for you, because I feel that there's a real stigma where people just say, why don't you just leave? And as you said, it's not always cuts and bruises, and it's not always that evident. So can you share your story with us?
Yeah, I mean, good question of why do people not leave? So I was married for 17 years, and for about 15 years I didn't even know I was in one. Because you don't get taught the signs of emotional abuse. We see it now more often because the government is bringing out TV ads, they talk more about it. But it started for me in small portions. So he's always talked in a authoritarian language to me, like I was no one, and it was very subtle. However, then over the years, I started to rebel, and that's when. So the last couple of years of our marriage were the ones where got bad as such.
So can you, because how do we identify emotional abuse? That's really the question.
Well, about emotional abuse or even verbal abuse can be in many forms. It's by name calling, it's by not allowing the person to do certain things, which I wasn't in. Look, I have to, right from the start, my case of emotional and verbal abuse is nothing compared to some people.
Sure.
However, who makes the line of what is acceptable and what is not acceptable?
No. So tell us, if you don't mind sharing, so we can tell us what specifically you experienced in your personal life. Like, what weren't you allowed to do, and what was he calling you?
It was more the verbal abuse. So when we got divorced, that's when it really started. And it's even to this day, and we're talking now about 8 years after I got divorced, or 8 years after separation. So I left in 2009, and 2010 we got divorced. I've been called every name on the Blue Sun. I've been told numerous times that he's going to kill himself because of how bad I am. It's the tone of how he spoke to me, and it installed buttons into me. And a lot of people who know me, they go like, you haven't experienced domestic violence. You're such a strong, powerful woman. And yes, whilst I have the outside of being very strong and self-sufficient, and I know what I want, but people who actually know me, who've seen of what I have gone through, I'm a completely different person on the inside. And I'm not talking about I'm this shy, innocent kind of girl. No. And I always believe it takes two to tango in anything. However, what I have experienced is unacceptable. And the worst part is when children are being put into the middle.
Yeah, tell me how does that work with you? So how many children do you have?
I have two. I have a 15-year-old son and a 22-year-old daughter. My son is luckily strong enough to, I call it the invisible shield.
Okay.
So over the last 8 years, I've learned neurolinguistic programming. I studied psychology, but that not to be in that field, but it was more about me understanding who I was and understanding why he's doing these things. So the more I became wiser, the bigger the shield became. So when he throws things, for me it feels like they're just bouncing off. However, my 22-year-old isn't like that. So he's going now through her and calling. I mean, she just moved out about 6-7 weeks ago into her own place, and he's saying, "I'm so glad you left this monster." And I mean, we're talking, I'm still their his children's mother. I will never go away. And the same, like my 15-year-old gets shared 50-50. Whilst I know who he is and what he has done, but my son still needs his father. And I hoped, and through talking to my children, I have tried and hopefully installed them some sort of mechanism that they can protect themselves as such. Because
yeah, that's so interesting. So what makes you think, because so this, and I love that this has come up, so really the question is, what's the role of a father? And if a person is bad and could potentially inflict things, like permanent damage into those children, does that person still have a right to be their father?
Well, ultimately, what is bad? It's a perception of someone. So what I may see is bad, someone else may not see bad. I have an issue with their father, but my children don't have an issue with their father. The role that I have as a mother is equip them with tools and with tools that they can handle a situation where it comes. Because I have two choices. I either take them completely out of their life, out of his life, and they will struggle with not growing up with a father, because ultimately we all need male and female role models.
But can I not have an alternative male role models when we look in the community, like your biking club? I'm sure there's some blokes there.
Yeah, but it's still different.
Yeah.
It's still, I came from a family. My parents got divorced when I was 6, I think.
Yeah.
I know how it was.
Okay.
And for me is I rather, and it in either way it will have an impact on them.
Yeah.
You can't shield them completely, but for me is children aren't stupid. They will understand. So my job as a mother is to equip them with as much, tools as possible. So I go and sit down, and I had this conversation with them a couple of weeks ago, and I said, so tell me, let's take domestic violence out, take the name bullying out, school bullying, let's take the name of workplace bullying out. Just let's say it's abuse. What is abuse? So I asked them, tell me, what do you see as abuse? And then I said, it's the same like, is stealing $10 okay, but not $1 million? It's still stealing. It's got a different level to it, but it's still stealing. So when you talk to children about what's happening, and I'm not talking to them that your father is like this, because it has nothing to do with him. Yes, I've been in it, in my version of what I have felt, what I have dealt with. I mean, I've just been into high court a few months ago. So I'm still getting dragged into court cases, and
How is it? This is fascinating to me. So, and I really want to explore this a little bit. So you've separated 8 years ago. Your children, are of the age when they can decide where they want to go, and yet this is continuing. How is this happening? How is it that he still has such a strong influence in your life, and that you're still so disruptive in your life?
It's a power struggle. It's purely power. I mean, he remarried a few years ago.
He's remarried?
He remarried, and I thought once that happened, he's out of my life, but unfortunately that didn't happen. It's a power struggle. For him, it's about... if I win something, then I can say, look, I was right. But through the last 8 years, every single thing he lost. And each time he lost a court case, his rage got fueled even more.
So what's his suing? Like, what's the court case about?
Yeah, no, that's
all sorts of, okay.
Yeah, that's. Look, I'm not here to make him as the bad person.
No, I'm just interested because what I find so interesting is that, and this will happen to 1,000 women out there, and men, like 1,000 people. How you separate and you sever that cord, and yet that grip is still there, which is phenomenal. So how, because you said right in the beginning, you said, I don't think I'll ever be rid of him or the situation. What made you say that?
Because we have children that connects us. And whilst it will get more and more, because he's not getting to me anymore. So obviously I blocked him. He can only email me as such. But he goes through my children, which makes me... I become then a lion. If someone attacks my children,
of course,
I become
like
a lion. Yeah, I'm a mother, kind of. However, as older they get, my son now goes, like I taught my children that if their father talks about me, get up, walk away so you can still see him, stay there for a few seconds, come back and ask, have you finished? If he keeps going, walk away again. Because they many times have said, Dad, we don't want to hear it. But that he doesn't stop.
Wow.
So you need to then do physical, because as we know, people are auditory or visual or kinesthetic and all that. And I said to him, remove yourself. This is his shit. I call it's his t-shirt. You have the choice to put his t-shirt on or to keep it or give it back to him. You don't have to put it on. So he's got issue, and unfortunately, he's never been diagnosed, but I do believe he has mental issues. And but this is just my perception.
Sure.
As such, he might not be, I don't know. But even my daughter says, why did you marry a mental person? I said, he wasn't like that when I married him.
Yeah, of course.
But then I was different too when I was 22. I'm a completely different. So we have evolved in a way we haven't evolved together. And when I came to Australia, he was it. I couldn't speak the language. I didn't know anyone. He was my security.
Is he Australian or is he?
He's Australian.
Okay,
yeah. So my life was around him.
Yes, of course.
And then our marriage problem started when I went into my business, into my own business. He wasn't as important anymore. And ultimately looking back, and it's not about I shouldn't have done this and all that. No, not at all. I'm very glad I married him because I've got 2 beautiful children and he has allowed me to do the things that I wanted to do. You know, he's not a bad person. He's just got a side to him that isn't very nice. And
it's so interesting that you say that because I mentioned this in the last interview, my neighbour's daughter has mental health issues and is using ice as well, and she's just been going off the wall, and it's something that's obviously developed over years because she's in her late 20s now. And I said to him, don't judge the person, judge the behaviour.
Exactly.
And I think just hearing you say that shows me the personal growth you've gone through.
Because I don't hate him.
Yes,
that's the funny thing is.
Yeah.
I don't hate him.
I would think that I would dislike someone very, very much.
Because for me, it's like, I go like, if I didn't go through all this,
Yeah.
I would have never learned about who I am.
Yeah.
If I never did that, I would have never met my ex-partner, who, both of us, we decided to do motorbiking. And I would have never got onto this journey to do this for a charity too. And for me, this is not something that is going to be there for a couple of years. I actually want to be able, by the time I close my eyes, I want to be able to say I was on this planet and I had an influence to bring change to society.
Yeah, nice.
If I didn't marry him, if I didn't experience all this, I would have never got to that point.
Yeah.
So I'm very grateful for what he has given me, whilst it didn't feel right at the time.
Obviously.
But I'm very thankful.
Yeah.
And that's what I want to bring to people, that A, there is a way out,
Yes.
and B, it's not a bad thing.
Yes.
We are being put on this planet for a purpose. And I don't know if this is my purpose. I don't know. Don't get me wrong. I'm not, into God and all that. Not at all. But there is a reason why we experience things. There's a reason why you and I connected. There's a reason why we connected years ago.
Yeah.
There was a reason why I needed to marry him. I
Yeah.
could have married someone else.
Absolutely.
Why him?
Yeah.
So for me, it's a journey, and you have a choice to take the journey to the left side or to the right side. And for me, I'm very thankful.
Yeah.
And because I'm definitely a different person to be what I was before.
Yeah, that's great. And I love that. And that's, and really appreciating every experience you have and saying that each thing just makes you stronger and builds you into the person you need to be.
Bring it on.
Bring it on! I love that. I'm particularly interested in how our cultural and societal rules create the situation. I was listening to an interview with this man. His name's Vishalakini. Of course, he wouldn't have an easy name to say, yeah. But his premise is we have rules, which is bullshit rules, that society puts on us and puts us in tiny little boxes and says, here we go, this is you fit in right here. So what do you think is happening with these rules that we are teaching women, that is and men, of course, thank you, that is continually perpetuating the same problem?
So it starts in schools, basically, because quite often in high schools, the girls get put into the assembly, and they get taught on these are the things that you should expect from another partner, so male. Let's talk about. So these are your things that you should have by a partner, and you should not take anything on anything else. Where then the boys get put into this corner, and they go like, you're not allowed to do this to another female. You're not allowed to do this, and you're not allowed to do this. So it starts with there, because ultimately abuse or those rules are not gender-based. They shouldn't be gender-based, because ultimately there are more men. So my mission, it's about females and males.
Yeah,
and
you get statistics. Hey, what was there?
There are more men killed each year in domestic violence than females.
Get suicide or murdered?
Both.
Yeah, okay.
There's a mixture of it. there are 21 males to 1 woman a year that getting killed, that are dying, that is related, because domestic violence or abuse is not just from your partner, it's from the court system as well. So when men have a huge effect after the divorce, when it goes into the court system on how they get treated. Usually in our society, children getting awarded more to the females instead to the males. I've met so many people, male people, that have said of what they have gone through the court system. They weren't allowed to see their children. They had to pay high maintenance fee. The woman took everything, and she was the abuser. But it comes back down on how what we see is right and wrong. So a few weeks ago, I had some hate mail coming to me and saying, how can you be a domestic violence victim because of who you are and how you... So I'm in general a very happy person. I do know I have a very masculine energy, a strong energy of myself, but that doesn't mean I can't be experience that kind of a power.
Well, isn't that a beautiful example, though, of how we have this picture of what a domestic violence victim should look like?
Yeah, because they should be timid,
Yes.
they should be small, little, old, frail people,
Yes.
women kind of thing, and we are not.
Yes.
I wish I would have had a broken arm, because someone would have seen it then.
Yes.
No one saw. Even he's extremely good with his words. The people that we interacted back then, none of them ever contacted me and gone like, hey, we want to hear your story. They think the sun shines out of his ass. I'm sorry to say that.
Yeah, sure.
Because usually abusers, and I'm not just talking about males, females as well, when they get to that level, they're really good with their words. And you have two sides. And so they show a side to the society that is beautiful, caring, and then you have that side behind your closed doors that just changes and it becomes evil.
It's like a psychopath. It's psychopathic behaviour, isn't it? It really is.
Doesn't mean they are psychopaths.
No, but it's just that behaviour, isn't it?
The psychopathic, the narcissistic,
Yeah.
it's the controlling. So we were talking about what are the symptoms, like it's purely control over what you can do, what you can't do. I mean, some people even aren't allowed to dress a certain way. They're not allowed to go out a certain time. They're not allowed to even talk or look at males. And, with males, females are equally as bad, just in the female version, where they have so much power over them. And quite often males these days are allowing things to get away with because they are so afraid that they lose their children.
Yeah, and I will, because I know that there was a movement not so long ago where there was a whole movement where men went on strike. I can't remember sort of how exactly they worked, but because they were saying our children are being used against us, and we have no say. And now we're saying no more. And I think there was like 1,000 fathers Australia-wide who stopped work and said, until something changes, we will not continue, because who's listening to us?
The problem is, it's not what's on the bottom. This is the issue that we have in society, but it needs to come down from the government. The government needs to change. They are all in to look good, but they don't want to change something.
Yeah.
It's you can go into a courthouse and you hear males and females struggling of what is happening that are involved with domestic violence.
Well, it's so interesting that you say that. And I just want to mention this here, is that a friend of mine, her husband is very high up in the police, and he actually just rewrote the domestic violence laws. And I wanted to interview him, and understandably they said, look, no. Okay, he's, in whatever position. And she was saying to me, look, no one wins. No one wins in this situation, which is accurate. Yeah, look, I mean, I hear you, but still, you're not doing enough. I don't feel they're doing enough.
No, but it needs to come down to the awareness. It comes back down of what people are perceiving is what is right and what is wrong. Is it right to call someone a cunt these days. Children these days, I mean, my son this morning said something about, oh, he's such a cunt. And I'm going like, wow, stop this. It starts with that. And then you see road rage, the abuse. People are so angry these days where they just it's not just about domestic violence, it's abuse in general.
Yes.
It's people are so angry and so unhappy with their life that the only way is to make someone else miserable so they don't feel so alone.
So I love that you raised that point, because that's what I was going to say, is that I believe the violence, whatever form it comes in, domestic violence or road rage, is the symptom. You know, it's the result. But that's why I think it's not changing. We're missing the cause. What do you think the cause is then of all of this dysfunction? Where is this all coming from?
It's very simple. It's not being satisfied with what you are and what you've done with your life.
But the interesting thing is we are all responsible for creating our own lives.
Yeah, but not everyone is at a personal growth level that understands that before you point a finger, you need to look at your own front door. I mean, if you just point a finger, and this is what I said to my son a while ago, could have been 6-12 months ago. I said, he was complaining about someone, and I said to him, Joshua, stop it. And then he kept complaining. and I said, okay, so you're blaming this person, and he's kept complaining. And I said, so show me, how do you point a finger? And he was so baffled with what I asked him. He said, what do you mean? I said, just show me how you point a finger. So he went like this, and I said, so tell me, what do you see? Oh, well, okay, my pointer is pointing forward. I have 3 fingers pointing back and a thumb going up. And I said, yeah, so you're pointing 1 finger to the person, 3 goes back, and 1 is stuck up your ass. And I said,
I love it.
Pull your finger out of your ass, because when you're interacting with people, it is a mirror reflection of yourself.
Yes.
So if you're having someone, and my ex-husband was a mirror reflection of myself.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying of what he did was what I did, but what was going on from an energetic way was just a mirror. And quite often I was his mirror. And I could have portrayed something in him that he was so dissatisfied with that brought on these things.
Well, so now I want to take it back a whole big notch, yeah. So I was listening to another interview, because I listen to a lot of interviews, yeah. Now, she's got a funny name as well. What was her name? Dr. Shifali, and she's a therapist in the US. And she said 99.9% of the time when someone sits opposite her, it's, saying I'm unhappy, right? It all goes back to the childhood. And she was suggesting, and I must say I agree with her, that people are having children without doing personal development. And generally, parents screw up their kids they just do, yeah.
Well, we model.
We model, yeah, so exactly. So it's dysfunction, model, dysfunction,
exactly.
Dysfunction.
And it just adds another layer on top of it. And quite often we have ancestral issues that we as children don't even know, but it's been passed down from generation to generation.
Exactly.
And something eventually has to explode.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, I'm not Catholic by any means, but the Catholics, they actually have marriage training before they get married. They have to go into a training program, and I don't know much about it, but they will need to learn of how to understand someone else. I truly believe in schools, you need to teach personal development.
I agree.
So my son had to learn about Hamlet.
Who cares?
Who gives a shit about Hamlet?
Exactly.
Because is it really going to help him in his future when he has an interaction with someone else? No. But personal growth, yes. Understanding of who you are,
absolutely.
What is your insecurities, what are your strengths,
yes.
And then learn about the different modalities about personal development as such on you speak a different language to me, an internal language. I mean, I have modeled my mother perfectly.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
Amazing.
A few years ago, I went like, holy shit. Okay, so I even modeled her insecurities. Okay, I've always seen my parents working so hard. We had a family business for 125 years in the family. So I've only seen my parents leave early in the morning, work late at night. So I immediately thought, you have to work hard to make money.
Yeah.
So if I didn't work hard and I didn't make money, or I made money, I would have felt really uncomfortable because it's not something that in my ancestral history was normal.
Yes.
Because they all worked hard.
Yeah.
So I modeled my moms, I've modeled my parents, my father, I've modeled some stuff from friends or even from, society that we're getting told. I mean, look at it this way. A few weeks ago, I had dinner with some friends and we had this beautiful Indian food, and we sat around this little low table on cushions and we had to eat with our fingers.
Yeah.
The whole time, my mother sat here behind me going, stop eating with your fingers. I'm 47 years old.
I know, it happens,
and
doesn't
we are
it?
so programmed
Yes.
into certain behaviours, and this is what they've been taught from their
Yes.
parents. And so it comes back down, but ultimately you can only change this and stop the whole cycle if people do personal growth.
Absolutely.
Understanding about yourself and then learn about other people. I know about the different modalities of communication. So when someone talks to me, I don't even listen anymore to the words. I listen to what they're actually saying to themselves, because they might speak Indian and I speak English. If I speak in my language, they won't understand. And quite often when you talk about companies and they have these company meetings and everyone agrees about, this is what we're going to do. And then usually one or two people do something completely different and you're thinking, were you in the same meeting? It's just because they are talking and understanding it differently than someone else.
They're processing it differently, isn't it? That's so interesting. So, and I really feel that our society is becoming less and less and less accountable. So people keep giving their power away, and it's never my fault. It's my boss's fault. It's
always
technology.
easy pointing fingers.
Easy, and I feel that's where the real problem's coming from. It's not, and I know that we often rely on legislation, but it's legislation for me is an archaic beast. They take so long to change, and every revolution, every big movement has come from the people, not from. You see, once again, I feel there's a big danger waiting for a government to change.
But ultimately, society is about what do I gain out of something?
Yeah, it's a very me society. Isn't it?
It's a very me society.
Yeah.
It's not anymore about. Okay, my greatest belief is, I'm going to be at service as much as possible to other people, because ultimately, eventually, I'm going to get the same thing back, because I'm going to be involved with people who want to do the same thing.
Yeah.
But it really comes down as taking ownership to what you did. I'm no innocent person. I can with 100% certainty say I wasn't the most easiest person to live with when I was married. And however, I'm going to go to one particular spot, and everything beforehand, I'm in it. The part afterwards, I'm not taking that shoe on.
Yeah, great.
But everyone, you need to own what you've done.
Yeah.
And this is where it comes down. There's a reason why, it's a society problem, but it needs to be changed from the government. Legislations need to be changed.
And I'm with you there. I'm with you. I just think my premise is always, if everyone just took accountability for their own actions and focused on being happy, we wouldn't have problems.
Not as many, definitely.
But then, of course, then the advertisers wouldn't be making any money because they're so scared. So I wonder, I sat and I've often contemplated domestic violence or any sort of violence, wars, murders, and I wonder if there is a solution. I wonder, with all the people in the world,
quite often. I was at a seminar just a couple of weeks ago, and it's about energy healing. It's about getting at peace with yourself as such. But it also talks about, when we're talking about wars, and quite often there is ancestral pain in it that gets, where is hatred? Where does it stem? Or for example, if I were born in India, I would have been a Buddhist. Okay, I'm not born in India, so I'm not a Buddhist. So it comes down to where you've grown up to.
Yeah.
My son, so I was a swimmer, his father is a cyclist. So obviously he likes swimming and cycling. Why not AFL? Why not cricket?
Yeah.
So it really comes back down to the where your home was. And so I could have grown up in a house full of hatred, in a sense of what do you call it? A racist, you know. I could have been raised in a house of Ku Klux Klan people.
Yeah.
I would have
exactly.
Because we were not born with a stamp, here you are a bad person.
No, exactly. We're the product of our environment.
Exactly.
And we can change that too, though. That's not an excuse once again, hey?
That's so true.
So what a great discussion, and so different to what the normal domestic violence discussion is, isn't it? Because it's so victim abuser kind of mentality there. I just want to bring it back, though, to if I feel that a lot of people don't get involved because they don't know how to get involved. So if someone knew you, say for example I'm your friend, and I noticed that things aren't quite right, the way your partner was talking to you was inappropriate, and how would you advise someone to approach that kind of topic?
Well, it comes back down to your own personal growth again, because say if you know someone is getting hurt and you choose not to, why aren't you not doing? You are afraid of you might lose that person, or you are afraid of how you would look like in society. So it comes back down to you. Mm-hmm. Because ultimately for me is I rather lose a friend, but I save that friend, male or female. Mm-hmm. They may not take what they need at the moment when I help them, because they're in denial or they are so scared, so they are pushing it away, because it comes back to the fight or flight. So, but for me is how many times so there are people that stop smoking immediately and they're fine. And then there are people who need 20 goes before they get to the point of stop smoking. So for me is, if I have a friend who I see is in domestic violence and I choose not to say, I'm taking that one opportunity away for them to get to eventually to the point where they say they had enough and I need to be out. Because quite often it really comes back down when someone is in an abusive relationship. When you get told enough that you are a bad person, you are a monster, you deserve what you're getting, eventually you're actually believing it. Because I can tell myself all day long, I'm ugly as hell. Eventually I look in the mirror and I only see ugliness.
Well, a belief is only a repeated thought.
That's
you
correct.
See? That's what it is.
So it comes back down is, it's not about what I get out of it, because when someone says, oh, I'm too scared to be involved, I mean, you have people lying on the streets and people have no problem walking past them and they might have just had a heart attack.
Yeah, exactly.
But what are they doing is they're going, what do I get out of that?
Yes.
How am I going to be seen in society?
Yes.
Am I going to get hurt? So if people take away of what they're getting out of it instead of, what can I do in order? So if you can't speak to someone directly, speak to someone who can. Inform someone, a government institution saying, I see this and you want to be anonymous, and they can intervene.
Absolutely.
So it doesn't always have to, if you get to that point, but ultimately take out, there are so many people out there. Since I've came out and said I need help to do this, I had so many people come to me and say, we want to help you.
Yeah, absolutely. Because people really want to help. Sometimes they just don't know how.
They just don't know how.
Yeah. And also, I really believe in the premise, if you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem.
Yeah.
And really, karma's a bitch, yeah? I believe in karma, like Newton's third law. For every action, there's an equal reaction, yeah? So if you know that someone's being hurt, but you not go do something about that, that shit's going to happen to you. You're going to be in trouble.
Or someone that you are close to.
Because someone's going to be in trouble, either you or someone you're close to, and someone's not going to step in. So think very carefully about that.
Exactly.
Yeah? Because really, what are you afraid of? Like, there's there's nothing that could really happen. Hey? And that's really what I feel Yeah, it's that. I also feel that in society, because we have nothing to fear, really, there's no wild animals or anything, we just perpetuate fear. We imagine fear, which is even worse than the real fear.
But even if you are scared that something might come back to you, if you are intervening, go to an organization that can help.
Yeah.
On behalf of you. You only just have to say something.
Say something.
Just say something.
Absolutely.
Because don't get me wrong, there are people out there that will hunt whoever is coming out and saying they are doing X,
Very
Y, Z.
rarely, though. Like, I don't
It's because it
so.
gets dramatized in newspapers.
Of course. And you know what? I interviewed a reporter once, and she said to me, whatever is spoken about in the news is the exception. She goes, because if it wasn't, it'd be ordinary. So she goes, everything you see in the news is actually the exception to the rule. So the likelihood of that happening is 0.00001. Yeah, but people say, well, this is gospel. Yeah,
and this is what happens all the time.
All the time, which is not accurate, because if it was, it would be ordinary and it wouldn't be on the news, right?
Exactly.
So amazing. So is there anything you sort of want to share, like a final message you want to give to the Women on Fire community about anything about abuse, domestic violence in particular? Is there anything you sort of want to share with the community out there?
Well, for me, the biggest thing is it's about just doing something. It's not being afraid of having every step planned out in order for you to get out or to help someone. It's just do something. Even the smallest step. I mean, we get taught, for example, if you play tennis and you just change the angle of your racket, just a degree, your ball hits somewhere else. You just have to change something. So for me is people need to be more aware and not to be afraid of speaking up. It starts with one person, and if one person adds another one, it's two. Then these two will add another one, we become 4. Then we became 8. Then we do more. And it's not about what is happening to you. It's about what can I bring to society. It's go back to, thousands of years ago. The community. We live in these huge communities. And no one knows each other.
It's so insular, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like it's so no one knows a neighbour or anything like that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Just reach out and ask someone, how are you going?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, let's put it this way. So many times I've been asked how you're going, and I said, great. But my body language was so wrong, or my tonality was so wrong, but no one actually tells you, hey, I have a really shit day.
Yeah, and that's what I also wish people would be, is just be honest. And it's so funny because one of the young ladies here, I walked in and she was lying on the couch, and I'm like, oh my God, how are you? Like, what's wrong? Are you okay? And she goes, yeah, I'm just really sick and stuff. So I was just like talking, I said, would you like me to drive you home? Are you okay? And she got up and she went back to work and she walked out and she walked past a woman. And the woman said, oh, how are you? You know how we frivolously throw that. And she went, oh, no, I'm good, thank you. But she's evidently dog sick. But her response was still good, thank you.
Because that's what we are getting trained in saying, instead of being really, I've got a shit day today, or I need help.
And be comfortable saying that.
Yeah.
Be comfortable saying that.
But it comes back down in learning about yourself and loving yourself and healing the wounds that you have taken on through your parents. I mean, let's put it this way. I've married my father, really.
Amazing.
When I came to that, I went like, oh my God. Because first thing when I grown up, I said I will never marry a banker. What did I marry? A freaking banker.
I
have nothing against bankers, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But the behavior between my father and my mother was exactly the same. The behavior between my husband and myself. I literally modeled my parents in my own relationship. That's why it never worked. And I've taken on my mom's insecurity and the strength. I love my mom and I love what I have modeled because I've taken on her strengths. She's the most hardworking, beautiful person, and I'm proud that I have modeled some of her traits because she's my idol. She is the, with all her bad bits and all the stuff that comes with her, but it's what we get trained from society of what is correct and what is acceptable and what's not acceptable. And I'm just going like, be more mindful of other people and care about other people. It's not about you. It's about everyone together as a collective.
And it's so interesting. And once again, I was just standing here and a woman walked in. I was doing something at the printer and I know her and I stopped and I spoke to her. Like you and I are like, hey, how are you? What's going on for you? But really stopped. Yeah, because sometimes people just carry on and they type away.
They're present, but they're not really present.
And so she said to me, oh, anyway, I don't want to keep you. I said, no, I've always got time for people. I said, what does it take me 1 minute to stop?
A few months ago, I went into the city with the train, and literally 98% of the people were on their phone. Yeah. So I sat next to a guy who read a book.
Yeah.
Now, I sort of peeked over,
yes.
and I apologized because it was like a Greek Orthodox, some kind of writing that I could not understand.
Yeah.
And I said to him, I'm really sorry, but what are you reading there? And we had the most amazing conversation. And he's actually a professor teaching, ancient Greek language. So we were talking, complete strangers from where I lived into the city. And he said, this was an amazing conversation and thank you so much, because we both took time out to be interested about the other person.
Absolutely. And once again, it just shows you the absolute craving people have for connection. People are lonely out there, eh? So, I mean, my core message is always, guys, and exactly like you were saying, it starts here. Start here. Do yourself this favor, especially as women. Take the time to do some amazing personal development. Not personal development, I like to call it self-discovery.
I mean, the seminar that I went, and I'm not doing any advertising for them because but the Path of the Goddess with Tamika Hilda was such a... So I was very close on getting a DVO set out on my husband 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And I didn't do it straight away because I wanted to see what is happening and evolving more, because it became quite nasty.
Oh, wow.
And I did the seminar and I saw my daughter on the following Tuesday. And I said to her, I'm not going to put a DVO on him, because if I were to do this, I'm going to have to fight every other person. I'm calling it fight. But I have to fight every person who's going to hate me and throws things at me. And I'm not going to do this. I said, I'm going to show compassion and love to him and to any other person.
That's a big call.
Because love and compassion is the only way we can heal things.
Thank you. We love the world back to health.
Exactly. And it comes down it's not the fight. Fight only fuels fights.
Yes.
Hate fuels hate. Yeah.
Absolutely. Amen.
And so she asked, how are you going to give him love and compassion? I said, he doesn't need to get it through a hug or nice words or any of that. I'm just sending it out from me. If he wants to receive it or not, doesn't really matter.
Absolutely.
But it's about showing compassion to people and showing love and caring about other people, and that's how we stop everything.
Wow. I mean, this is just such a beautiful conversation, isn't it? I mean, we could carry on forever. I just want to, as we wrap up, I just want to really acknowledge you, like for standing up for something that's been swept under the rug. And you've experienced it. You've been getting abuse and you've been getting hatred.
Well, to this day, my ex still believes that he's never done anything wrong.
You see, and even from him, but also from society and people within the community who will be saying bad things about you because people don't want things to change. And
exactly.
So I really acknowledge you for being brave through and for doing the personal work and for giving, first of all. That's a big thing, I know it is. And for going out there and sharing a message of love and not of more fighting. And I really want to acknowledge you for that. And I'm super excited to see how this all pans out. So tell us, where can we find out more details about your amazing mission, and how can we support you?
Well, for me, is you can find me on momandsonadventure.com. That's
Okay.
our website.
Yeah.
We are on Facebook as well under Mom and Son Adventure.
Awesome.
Instagram, same, Mom and Son Adventure.
All social media.
All social media. But ultimately is when we are putting events on, I just want as many people to come as possible to help us raise funds for the charities. Yes, we're going to have to raise funds for us in order to do the things that we want to do here in Australia and overseas. But just support it. If you can't help us supporting in a financial means, just helping with your knowledge that you have. You may know someone that could help us in any shape or form, but just even liking our Facebook page, giving us encouragement, because we will have times where we feel right in the dumps, where we just need love and compassion to continue going through, because this is going to be a very long journey and a very scary journey. But I'm up for it, so.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I'm super excited. So we'll put all the links in the interview anyway, so that people can hook up with you.
But thank you so much for having me. I mean, this has been really great. I loved it. I hope everyone is going to watch it all.
They are. What are you talking about? Pearls of wisdom.
Exactly.
Oh, thanks, Stephanie. It'd be great. And thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.